Imagine this: sunlight pouring through a window, illuminating tiny specks of dust that dance lazily in the air. Outside, a gentle breeze rustles the trees, and the soft sound of birdsong drifts into the room. Did you know that researchers have discovered that living in an organized space can reduce stress levels by nearly 20%? For seniors, that sense of calm isn't just nice, it can make each day feel lighter, easier, and a whole lot more joyful. Now, picture a serene home on a cool morning. The aroma of fresh coffee wafts through the kitchen, and warm light spills across a table cluttered with yesterday's newspaper. For many folks over 60, this scene is comforting, yet it often conceals an unspoken truth: the gradual accumulation of belongings gathered over a lifetime. Each item has its own story. Each drawer holds a memory, and at some point, it becomes challenging to distinguish what we truly treasure from what merely occupies space. Have you ever stepped into a room and felt an invisible weight settle on your shoulders, even though everything seemed fine? That heaviness is often the quiet presence of clutter. It's not just about messy shelves or piles of paper. It's about how objects can crowd our minds and subtly rob us of the peace we deserve. Today, we're embarking on a journey that shows us change isn't about rushing or striving for perfection. It's about those small, thoughtful moments that create a shift in the atmosphere, a gentle opening that invites tranquility. We'll explore how seniors just like you transform their homes in just 1 week, turning corners once cluttered with belongings into spaces where light and air can flow freely once more. Imagine standing in the heart of your favorite room. Perhaps it's a cozy living area where sunlight dances across a familiar rug, or a bedroom where a cherished quilt lies at the foot of the bed. Visualize that space feeling lighter and simpler, with just enough around you to evoke warmth and life, but never overwhelming. How would it feel to take a deep breath there, knowing that every item serves a purpose and every surface is free to bask in the morning light? And here's something to keep in mind. The most surprising aspect of these transformations isn't the speed at which the home's changed. It's the gentle nature of it all. No frantic energy, no endless to-do lists, just steady, calm steps that respected both the people and the memories held within those rooms. One drawer, one shelf, one quiet decision at a time. If you've ever dreamed of a peaceful, organized home but felt lost on where to begin, consider this your invitation. Over the next few moments, we'll journey through the before and after of real stories, and you'll see how simple actions can restore balance, clarity, and warmth. Stick with me, because the final tip I'll share turned an ordinary living room into a serene sanctuary, a beautiful reminder that even the smallest effort can lead to something truly wonderful. When Margaret, a retired teacher with a warm smile and silver hair neatly gathered at the nape of her neck, opened the door to her living room, she took a moment to simply soak it all in. The afternoon sun streamed across the floor in long, gentle rays, illuminating the quiet chaos that had settled in over the years. Piles of magazines leaned precariously against the arm of an old floral chair, a sewing basket perched on top of a stack of folded blankets, and nearby, a collection of photo frames sat in a haphazard row, some still wrapped in tissue paper. She inhaled slowly, the familiar scent of lavender polish and aged paper filling her lungs, and murmured softly to herself, "Where do I even start?" There was no judgment in her voice, just a wary tenderness, the kind that comes from caring deeply about something but feeling a bit lost on how to manage it. Maybe you felt that way too, the quiet overwhelm when your belongings seem to multiply until they're watching you from every corner. Margaret stood there, reminiscing about the day she moved into this house with her late husband. She could almost picture them, younger and brimming with dreams, laughing as they arranged furniture and debated where to hang their first travel photos.
Over the years, every shelf became a resting place for memories. The shells they collected from a beach trip, the recipes she jotted down from friends, the books she promised herself she would revisit one day. Clutter, she came to understand, was more than just a collection of things. It represented years of her life. Those lazy Sunday afternoons spent curled up by the window with a good book, and the heartfelt letters from former students, now tucked away in envelopes that had faded with time. Each item felt like a thread intricately woven into the tapestry of her existence, yet somehow all those threads had twisted into a heavy knot, difficult to unravel. She settled onto the edge of the sofa, her fingers gliding over the armrest, feeling the fabric's texture beneath her touch. Memories flooded her mind of all the times she had promised herself to start decluttering, to create space for new experiences, but the task always loomed too large. A quiet voice in her head whispered, "What if it's too late? What if I can't handle it all?" But then, as she gazed around the room with a softer perspective, a new thought emerged, gentle, steady, and reassuring. What if I simply gave each item a purpose or a farewell? The notion felt refreshingly simple, yet it brought a wave of relief. She didn't have to tackle everything in one overwhelming go. She could honor what truly mattered and let go of what no longer served her. If you've ever found yourself in a space weighed down by memories and belongings, you might resonate with the blend of tenderness and uncertainty that Margaret experienced that day. She wasn't just sorting through her possessions, she was reconnecting with fragments of her own story. And as she rose again, smoothing the folds of her cardigan, she felt a quiet sense of readiness awaken within her, as if the first step could be smaller and more compassionate than she had ever envisioned.
Margaret realized she didn't want to take the first step on this journey alone. So she reached out to her neighbor Henry, a genuinely kind soul with a soothing voice and a talent for making tough tasks feel manageable. He showed up that very afternoon, bringing along a small basket filled with chamomile tea bags and a warm smile that lit up his face. They settled at the kitchen table, steam curling up from their cups, chatting about the possibilities for her home. As the tea warmed her hands, Margaret felt a quiet strength beginning to grow within her. Henry proposed a plan that seemed almost too straightforward. Tackle one room each day for a week. No rush, no pressure, just a gentle pace that they would set together. It was all about taking their time, focusing on each space until it felt peaceful again. Margaret nodded, feeling a weight lift from her chest, as if she had been given the green light to move forward without the fear of failing. On the first morning, they flung open the living room windows, inviting a refreshing breeze to sweep in. The curtains danced lightly, and the scent of garden leaves blended with the faint smell of old books. "It already feels so much lighter," Henry remarked, brushing away a cobweb from the windowsill. Margaret chuckled, amazed at how quickly a sense of renewal could spring forth from something as simple as fresh air. They started off softly, beginning with the low table next to the armchair. Margaret picked up a stack of magazines, flipping through each one. A smile crept across her face as she came across clippings of recipes, travel notes, and articles she had once intended to share with friends. Some she decided to keep, while others she let go with a quiet sigh, as if she were releasing a weight she hadn't realized she was carrying. As they continued to tidy up the room, their conversation meandered. Henry shared tales from his days as a carpenter, including the time he crafted a rocking chair for his granddaughter's nursery. Margaret reminisced about afternoons spent grading papers by the fire, her husband reading nearby. The room seemed to lean in, listening intently, grateful to witness their gentle companionship. Then, tucked away under a quilt neatly folded at the foot of the sofa, Margaret's hand brushed against a frame. She pulled it out and discovered a photograph of her late husband, younger and smiling, sitting in that very chair by the window. For a brief moment, the room fell silent. She traced the edge of the frame with her fingers, her eyes welling up as memories flooded back, the way he always claimed the sunniest spot in the house,
the soft hum he would make while reading the newspaper. "This was his favorite chair," she whispered. Henry placed a comforting hand on her shoulder, saying nothing, allowing the moment to breathe. Margaret felt a wave of emotion rise and then recede, like a gentle tide rolling to shore. It was in that moment she understood that this journey was about more than just organizing a room. It was about clearing the haze in her heart, allowing herself the space to feel and heal. With every item they lifted and every surface they scrubbed, she felt her connection to her past becoming clearer, not a burden, but a light shining through. Yet the most surprising discovery was still ahead. Tucked away beneath a pile of old letters in the corner was something hidden from view, holding a secret she hadn't yet revealed. She looked over at Henry, realizing that this process had transformed into more than just tidying up. It was a deep dive into love, memory, and renewal, a journey to rediscover parts of herself she thought were long gone.
By the 7th day, Margaret's home had found a new rhythm, almost as if the walls were breathing a sigh of relief. The sunlight pouring through the living room windows now illuminated a space that felt open, purposeful, and serene. The stacks of magazines had vanished, replaced by a single woven basket that held the few she genuinely loved to read. The sewing basket, once buried beneath a mountain of blankets, now sat on a low shelf next to a neatly folded quilt, ready for those quiet evenings of crafting. The armchair by the window, previously lost in a sea of clutter, now stood proudly on its own. The afternoon sun spilled over its fabric, and for the first time in years, Margaret noticed how lovely its soft pattern looked in the natural light. On the shelves, only her favorite books remained, their spines creating a colorful, organized display. A small potted plant took center stage, its leaves basking in the sunlight as if celebrating the newfound tranquility of the room. As Margaret strolled through the space, her fingertips brushed against the smooth surfaces that had been hidden for so long. She felt lighter, as if she had finally put down a weight she hadn't even realized she was carrying. It wasn't just that the room had changed. The very air felt gentle, as if it had been patiently waiting for her to reclaim it. On the coffee table, a new treasure had taken its place, a bundle of old letters lovingly tied with a satin ribbon. Inside, she found a note from her late husband, written in that familiar, flowing script. "Keep our home full of warmth," it said. As she traced the words, tears filled her eyes, but they weren't just tears of sorrow. There was joy, too. Joy in realizing that love could still be felt in the quiet act of making space for life to go on. The message wasn't about furniture or boxes. It was about nurturing the heart of a home, about letting go of what no longer served her and making room for new memories to blossom. Standing in that sunlit room, she felt a childlike gratitude, as if she had been given back something she thought was lost forever. Then, as she arranged the letters on the table, a surprising thought crossed her mind. Maybe her story could help someone else, another neighbor, a friend from her book club, anyone feeling overwhelmed by their own possessions. She resolved to share what she had learned, that transformation isn't about rushing or following strict rules. It's about kindness, patience, and honoring the chapters that brought you to this moment. Margaret settled into the armchair, the sun warming her shoulders, and took a deep, calming breath. Around her, the room buzzed softly, alive with potential. The week of thoughtful choices had given her more than just an organized home. It had restored her sense of peace, a freedom to embrace the present without the burden of what she no longer needed. She smiled, feeling the quiet strength that comes from starting anew, knowing that the home she cherished now mirrored the calm and clarity she had discovered within herself. As Margaret settled into her newly refreshed living room, a warm golden light spilled across the floor, blending with the gentle aroma of chamomile that still hung in the air from the tea she and Henry had enjoyed earlier.
She sank into her favorite armchair, now free from the quiet crowd that used to surround it, and wrapped her hands around a steaming mug. The atmosphere felt lighter, almost as if the room itself was breathing in sync with her. She took her time looking around, letting her gaze linger on the corners that once felt so heavy. A few cherished knickknacks remained, each one telling a story she held dear. A seashell from a coastal getaway, a small carved bird from a market visit long ago, and a framed photo of her grandchildren beaming in the garden. The rest of the space was soft, open, and serene. In that moment, Margaret understood that perfection was never the aim. A home, she mused, should offer comfort, not pressure. It should cradle memories while allowing the present to flourish. If you've been thinking about decluttering to create the kind of ease Margaret experienced that day, start small. Tackle just one drawer or clear off the top of a nightstand. Open a window and let a refreshing breeze flow through your space. Place a vase of fresh flowers where clutter once reigned, and watch how that simple change transforms the entire atmosphere. As you take those gentle steps, take a moment to notice what stirs within you. Sometimes a room seems to respond in soft whispers, expressing gratitude for your care or reminding you of the quiet strength that has always been a part of you. Maybe you'll hear it just like Margaret did, as if an old friend is saying, "You belong here." The beauty of transformation is found in its simplicity. It doesn't require grand gestures or endless energy. It simply asks that you choose kindness over perfection and presence over haste. With every item you let go of, with each shelf you clear and polish, you create a space where calm can thrive, where your current life can blossom without being overshadowed by the past. Margaret felt this deeply as she ran her fingers over the smooth surface of the coffee table where the ribbon-tied letters lay. She reflected on how close she had come to leaving them buried under years of clutter, and how, in making space, she had discovered something truly valuable. Her husband's words, "Keep our home full of warmth," were no longer hidden. They had transformed into a gentle guide for the days to come. Leaning back with her eyes half closed, she allowed the sunlight to warm her face. The week spent in careful attention had gifted her more than just neat shelves and organized drawers. It had restored a sense of belonging, a peace earned slowly, one choice at a time. Now, as you survey your own space, perhaps you'll notice a corner that's ready for its own moment of calm. Maybe there's a single shelf that's prepared to release what it no longer needs. The journey doesn't have to be hurried. It simply needs to start. Take that first step, no matter how small, and let your home remind you of the beauty that simplicity can bring.